Larry, it's 5:30. Okay. Good evening. We'll call the Hawarden, Iowa City Council to order on Wednesday, April the 28th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. All present are council and staff other than Corey. Corey may be a little late. Okay. For those of you that are with us tonight, there are no public hearings. If you wish to address the council and staff, you are allowed to do that on agenda item number 2C. We would invite you, 1C, we would invite you to come to the podium and direct your comments to the council. Just so you're aware, as government students and others, the council will listen but will not react to your comments as it's not an agenda item. So let's say you wish to come up and tell the council you think the swimming pool rates are too high. You can certainly do that. The council will not make any action on that because it's not a standard agenda item. That being said, the council may wish to put that on the next agenda for consideration, so you can certainly do that. I do have a timer here as the mayor. In fact, I've never had to use it. No one generally goes over 5 minutes in their comments. If you are speaking for the group, you still have only 5 minutes to address us with your comments. If you have another subject matter, you can certainly come forward with that. Okay? If there were a public hearing, when we got to that agenda item, the public hearing would be opened, and then we would take community comments from there. But tonight there are no public hearings, okay? You should have agenda items all listed on the agenda. Backside is kind of procedures of how we handle things here at the City of Hawarden in City Council meetings, okay? We will start out with the standard agenda item, 1A, approval of the April 14th, 2021 council meeting minutes. Just so those folks in the there know, the City Council gets our agenda items in Friday, the week prior to, so the council have had these in their packets since Friday, so they've given them some deliberation. Also, they've looked over the packets and the financials too. Is there approval of the April 14th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Rob. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Rob and seconded by John. Any questions? All in favor then of the April 14th City Council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Next is approval of claims for April 28th. We'll start to my left with Rob for questions.
No questions.
Jen?
No questions.
John?
None, thank you.
Travis?
None, thank you.
Tim? None. So moved. It's been a motion by Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis. Any clarifications for claims of payment? All in favor then of the motion of the April 28th claims for payment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. Next now is open business from the community. Would anyone like to address the council at this time? Okay, come forward and state your name and give us your comments.
My name is Patty Anderson. I'm a citizen of Hawarden. I wasn't sure if you were going to allow discussion from the public on item number 10. Is that a discussion? I mean, do you allow?
You can certainly give us your thoughts.
Okay.
We're not going to interact back with you.
It appears to me that the city council is opting to sell the high-tech utility and possibly select a company to sell it to. I guess I would like to say, approximately 30 years ago, the community had existing telephone and cable providers. Those systems were approximately 50 years old, and there was poor service, crackling, and the city council at the time talked to those providers who said they were not going to upgrade those systems at the time. So the city council moved forward with developing high-tech realm telephone, cable, and internet utility, as we all know. And it was a lengthy process, but to bring competition because they had no other competition. Those companies were the incumbent. They have a right to that territory. no other incumbent can come in and serve you. So, with that, I guess I'm asking you not to vote to sell the utility. And if for some reason, I don't know what's taken place up to this point, I don't want you selling it to an incumbent or a company that has a network here. Because if they have a network and you sell the high-tech network to them, they have, that's their territory. No one's going to be able to come in and overbuild in here, and you're not going to have competition. So, I mean, for the community is what, I mean, I'm retired, I can just kind of sit back and forget it, but there will be no competition, and it stifles economic development. The citizens and businesses, they deserve the competition, the option to have that. So I guess I'm asking you not to sell the high-tech utility, and if for some reason you're at a point where you're going to, do not sell it to a company that already has a network and add it to it, and then no one else can come in. Because Hawarden is sitting out here by themselves, there's no one to, I sat on state broadband boards, and many of the private companies, you know, they commented in there that, yeah, Hawarden's kind of off by itself, so they would listen to me. But if that happens, there's no competition. Yeah, they can say, well, we'll give you these fixed rates for 2 to 3 years, or 4 or 5, and then later on, they own the system. Hawarden will never be able to come in here and build a system again, because they've made, you know, I would say there's been much legislation to prohibit it since we have done that, because they don't want municipals competing with them. So I guess I'm not sure where you're at with that. That is my opinion, and if you are thinking about selling it, I would suggest you have like several open public meetings for the public to come and understand exactly what you're doing and where they will be at. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else at this time wish to address the council? Okay, we will move on. Move on then to the mayor's report. Thanks to the city staff for getting the light poles painted on the north end of Central Avenue and installing the new lights up to the park on Central. In my estimation, sometimes it's the things that have gone unnoticed that are now very nice, that bring the community from looking average to clean and crisp. So thank you. There's still some opportunities to watch soccer, golf, and track up at the West Sioux High School. This is a great way to show your support to our local young people and to watch very talented athletes. I must say, yesterday, watching the girls' soccer for about 30 minutes, I finally had to quit, unfortunately, because it got a little too wet, but you girls are doing a nice job. We want to congratulate Granite Church on moving into their new facility. We thank them for their investment into our community and their investment into our community of faith. And lastly, welcome to the West Sioux Government class. If you have questions after you leave tonight, direct them to our city administrator, Mike, any of our council members, myself, or city staff. My hope would be that as you get settled into a community in the future, you get active in boards or city government and contribute your talents to your communities. So thanks for being with us tonight. At this point, we'll move on to staff reports. Jacob, Financial Director.
Next meeting, we'll be starting to look at that budget amendment. I should have it coming to you guys for the initial look at it, and then we'll pass it in the second meeting in May.
Okay, thanks. Travis Waterman, Public Works Director.
Next Monday, we're going to start filling the pool. We've got the new sand filters in place, so they'll be testing those on the first startup. And then Wednesday, the state inspector will be there to check our progress, make sure we can open. And then a reminder, citywide cleanup is May 14, 15, and 16. The dump site is open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And as of right now, the household hazardous waste will be this year, but it's going to be late summer, early fall. So once again, please hold on to your stuff. We will get to you. So
Okay, thanks. Mike DeBryan, City Administrator.
I have nothing to report outside of the agenda tonight.
Okay, thank you. Larry Cope, Economic Development and Community Director.
Our standard meetings, of course, with the chamber, our regional groups, continued work with our prospects, not only local, but also regional and statewide. We are opening up, or we are helping open up a business in downtown. This will be in Gary Wilkinson's old building. It will be a coffee house by the name of the Roasting Bean, and it's anticipated that it will open midsummer, and so we'll have a little bit more information on that later. That was one of our most recent revolving loan fund projects that we worked together with a local bank on. We also are working with individuals to look into the Timber Roots building. We've got a couple of prospects there. Rex Foreman's Tires location, the R&R building. We got a new prospect today for the soon-to-be former People's Bank building. And one former client of ours actually filled the north half of Rodney's downtown. So we're continuing to see some old storefronts being filled in. We finalized our downtown painting program. All of those who went with us on the first program have until May 3rd to have their agreements back into us, which puts a strict timeline on when they have to paint their buildings. And so that should be, all those should be in. We have 3 right now. We have, I believe, 2 or 3 more to go, and those should all be in by the first part of next week. And I think the painting will start actually on a couple of them fairly soon. We're also still working on our downtown pilot window banner program that will cover some of the windows in storefronts that have not been filled yet. We also have met with the West Sioux Industrial and Ag teacher about partnership opportunities between the teachers and the students there and some of our local industries. So we hope to see things come out of that, some advanced workforce training for some of our local businesses to get new employees, possibly those just coming out of the school.
Could you just give an overview, maybe for the students, kind of what the revolving loan fund has done in last three projects?
Yeah, a number of, our revolving loan fund is a pot of funds that we received from a government agency called the United States Department of Agriculture, their Rural Development Division. We take those dollars and match those with bank dollars, and we help fund entrepreneurs to start up in our community. Some of the individuals who have received funding before own restaurants in town. This new coffee shop has received funding. In addition to that, the flower shop downtown and many others, many of the businesses that you probably frequent or you buy at one point or another probably received some kind of funding from this program. And so we've become very aggressive in trying to make sure our local entrepreneurs know about this. And so it gives an opportunity for people who have ideas, who want to start their own business, to be able to do it in their own hometown.
Great, thanks, Larry. Mr. Peckner, anything from City Attorney?
No, I don't have anything to report.
Okay, thank you. And just so the students know, you're here at every City Council meeting and
Pretty much.
and
Pretty
and
much I am.
and give us.
Do a few things in the background. Try not to monopolize the meetings.
So that's why he has no reports most of the time. But he does all of the legalese that he and Mike put together and give us legal expertise during our meetings.
And there are some areas that I don't have the expertise, and then Mike contacts people that are specialists that do. But I try to handle the local things, help Larry with his revolving loans and just a number of other things, sales of properties.
Good. Thanks, Jim. We'll move on to item number 2C, council comments. Anything from council members tonight?
Just like to say thanks to Larry for all the hard work and all the things that are happening right now and the people who are involved in that. So, yeah.
Well, and I will say it's really a group approach. I mean, we're always working together as staff here, so it goes to all of us.
Great. Anything else? We'll move on to other agenda items. Number 3, hospital update by Jason Pullman, please.
So a couple things I want to talk about is Probably the redo of the ambulance garage. You can see if you've driven by it, it's enclosed now. We have a few finishing touches that need to happen. We can't paint the outside yet, but otherwise it's pretty much complete. EMS is really happy with the new ambulance garage. April 30th, we're actually going to have a vaccination drive-through. So we'll be having people drive through the ambulance garage. We'll be setting up vaccinations there, and that should be hopefully a successful event. But it's been a real good addition to our ER. People don't have to get out in the cold anymore out of the ambulance. That's really nice. Another announcement would be Dr. David Barnes has started at Hawarden. He is a contracted position. He works Monday and Friday. And so he's joined our team for a short period of time. Obviously, we're in the physician recruitment phase. We hired a firm called the Medicus Firm, and they have been, filtered as candidates. And we have a letter of intent for one position already, and we're looking for number 2. So obviously, a letter of intent is we want you to come. It doesn't mean he is coming yet. There's a lot of contract stuff that we have to get through before we actually put ink to paper. So let's see, the remodel of, we call it the West Wing, through some of the CARES Act dollars that we received. Through the pandemic, we found out that we only really had one negative pressure room in the hospital. Well, if you have COVID-19 patients, you need to have negative pressure. So we did some quick thinking and made some of the rooms negative pressure, but it was just a temporary solution. So we are in the process of remodeling those rooms and making them all negative pressure so we can handle a fair amount of COVID-19 patients or any other pandemic that enters into our community. So it's really going to be nice to have that capacity. That's about it. Is there any questions?
I quite often, since I can't get to board meetings, West Sioux education meetings, library meetings, look for their minutes. Can I find them on the hospital website?
We post the agenda, but we don't have the minutes on there. We can get the minutes on there. That's not a problem. Yeah.
I guess as the mayor, I'd like to know, how board meetings are going with all the different entities.
Sure. Yeah, we can get them on there.
That'd be helpful.
Are you doing reservations for the drive-through vaccination, or
No, it's just
come as you want?
come and we'll get you vaccinated, and we are going to have somebody there that is able to speak Spanish, so hopefully trying to get more people through and get vaccinated. That's the goal. We've got about 60% of our staff that are vaccinated. You can pretty much get vaccinated anywhere you want. You go to Walmart and get vaccinated. So the availability of the vaccines is there. Obviously, the Johnson & Johnson caused some scare throughout the United States, and I think people are somewhat a little bit reluctant now, but people are still getting vaccinated, so it's good.
And what age do they have to be to get vaccinated at this point?
The Pfizer, you can get vaccinated at the age of 16.
Okay.
And then the other 2 are 18.
Okay, and here we'll be using Pfizer, Moderna?
Just 18.
Okay, good. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Next agenda item is the third reading of Ordinance 729, ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances. For the folks that are here, we've had 2 readings. When you do an ordinance, you do 3 readings. Gives the public an opportunity to give comment to those ordinances. Could you give us an overview of what this ordinance is about, please, Mike?
Sure, this ordinance will repeal a part of our parking ordinances. Where in the downtown area, you can't park from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. They used to have that in there so they could sweep the streets during that period. We no longer sweep the streets during that time period. So we are going to repeal that section, and it will allow parking downtown all night.
Okay. Is there a motion for the third reading of Ordinance 729?
So moved.
Moved by Jen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Call for a roll call vote, please, for the third reading of ordinance 729.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Kurth.
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
Gucky.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, third reading ordinance 729 passes. That'll go into effect. Just so you folks know, and you probably know as government people in class, that with ordinances, we do a roll call vote. So we poll all the different council members. They vote individually. It's not a voice vote like some of the things you'll see tonight. Agenda item number 5, this is a resolution 2021-19 adopting revised rural regulations for the Grace Hill Cemetery in the city of Hawarden. Again, I'll refer to Mike for an overview of that, please.
I'm going through the rules of the cemetery. They were last updated in 2017. In going through them, we just wanted to add some language. Obviously, as flags become more prevalent and things like that, we've added flags to planters and flowers and other things that may be on the headstone monument. These items will remain and always will, even after this adoption, will be able to be placed on graves 2 weeks prior and 2 weeks after Memorial Day, and then for a certain period of time after somebody's funeral. The reason that we have the cemetery rules to do that is so that our crews can mow and trim around the headstones without a lot of obstructions. Landscaping outside of the normal footprint of the headstone is prohibited. We do that so not everybody can landscape the whole grave, and then that also creates a mowing problem. So just a couple updates, some things were taken out. One of the things taken out was on cleanup days. It said in the old one that on cleanup days, the third week in April, everything is taken off of the graves and thrown away. We don't do that. There's no sense in having that in our rules either. So it's updating it. And then our plan is we want to create a couple boards that one on the south entrance, one on the east entrance of the cemetery that have the rules posted. We've noticed that in other cemeteries, so that they're out there. A lot of times people don't even know there's rules. So
Also might be said that we're not unique in our cemetery. All cemeteries have rules in regards to landscapes and those types of things.
correct. All the ones we checked on do have rules on landscaping, on things placed. They got to be placed on the monument, so to allow for proper maintenance.
And the rules are also on the City of Hawarden website.
They're on the website. We hope to make them more visible, though, or more easy to find.
I'm in the profession, but I investigated some cemeteries, and there's one cemetery that you cannot have profanity on your grave marker. Otherwise, it's up to you to take your grave marker out. So, not that that happens, but that's an interesting rule in my mind. But
So moved.
there's been a motion by Travis and a second by Tim for Resolution 2021-19. Roll call vote, please.
Gucky.
Aye.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Kurth.
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
5-0 roll call vote, resolution 2021-19 passes. Agenda item number 6, the approval of the Iowa Department of Transportation Agreement, maintenances and repairs of primary roads. Travis or Mike can talk to this one.
Every 5 years, they send out a new agreement with the cities that have a state road that goes through them to spell out what they're responsible for and what the city is responsible for. Fortunately, on the highways that come through, they're responsible for the majority of it, but this just lists it all, and they ask the municipalities to pass it at a council meeting.
Nothing changed?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval of the IDT agreement for maintenance? So moved. Second. Moved by Rob, seconded by Tim. All in favor of that approval, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Agenda item number 7, approval of the City of Hayward evacuation plan.
This is a plan that we're required to have with our levy certification. It's geared more towards, FEMA wants it more towards if the levy would fail, how would we get everybody out of town? It includes a map, it includes how we would evacuate people, but it can be used for any kind of evacuation you you would have in any kind of disaster.
We've had one in place before,
Yeah, not to this extent.
not to this extent. Okay?
So moved.
There's been a motion by Travis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of the approval of the City of Hayward evacuation plan, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That again passes 5-0. Along those lines, we move into agenda item number 8, approval of the City of Hawarden plan for operations, protection, maintenance, flood preparation, and emergency procedures.
This is for operation of the levee, the protection, maintenance, flood preparation, emergency procedures. Once again, this is also required by FEMA, but it's also required by the Corps that we keep it up, but there's not a formal FEMA one. This makes the new plan formal for FEMA, so it can also go in towards our levee certification.
Is there a motion for approval of that plan? Moved by Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. All in favor then of the approval of the City Hawarden plan for protection, maintenance, flood preparation, emergency procedures, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes again 5-0. And again, those that are here, these folks have had these for 5 days now, so not that they have not looked at them. So that's why there's not much discussion in that regard. Agenda item number 9, approval of the release of mortgage for Janet Yeager residents.
Janet was a recipient of one of the Hawarden Housing Rehab Grants in 2014. She was required to keep this lien on her home for a period of 5 years, which is up. Normally, we come across these when they go to sell their house or something. Janet had just called and wanted to know if her lien was up and if she could get it taken off. Has no intent on selling it, it's just being, I guess, forward thinking and removing it, so.
Is there a motion for approval or release for mortgage?
So moved.
Moved by Rob, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Agenda item number 10, a discussion and possible action of continued liability, exploring options moving forward, with options to include potential sale of the system and selection of offer for the high-tech utility. Let me read, please, the telecom history and alternatives considered. On October 18, 1994, the City of Hawarden held a municipal election to see if the citizens would like to begin their very own cable telecommunications utility. With the results being favorable by the public vote, 588 votes for and 27 against, the City of Hawarden was the first municipality in Iowa to begin a municipal telecom utility. The reason for beginning our own utility was to improve phone and cable television services for our community. The telephone and cable service at that time were lacking clarity and consistency. There was no internet capability, and absolutely no cellular services available to the residents of Hawarden. Thus, high-tech was born. In 2000, the City of Hawarden partnered with ACS through a partnership agreement to provide high-speed internet to its residents. The city leased the internet broadband capacity to ACS so ACS could provide the retail internet service to the citizens of Hawarden. The telephone system was receiving government support for universal service fees and carrier access billing. Over the years, those revenue streams have slowly dwindled and being phased out to create a loss in the telephone system revenue. As cellular telephone services were added to the community by outside vendors, citizens saw a need to reduce their monthly bills and began dropping home telephone services. This competition added to the loss of revenue felt by the telecom utility. Cable television continued to do well until the federal legislature allowed local television stations to begin to charge for their services. The local channels that were essentially free over the airwaves were able to charge cable carriers a per customer fee. These fees continue to rise. The rise in cable television programming, streaming over-the-top video options, digital antennas, and satellite television are becoming more prevalent, causing high-tech to lose customers. Unless significant changes are made to the telecom utility, cable will continue to lose money. In an effort to analyze the viability of the high-tech utility, a financial study was conducted in 2014 by Consortia Consulting. Included in this study was expected revenue of the utility were to keep operating as is, the value of the system, searching out new partners for our management contracts, and seeking bids if we were to sell the telecom utility. 3 private companies, Long Lines, Premier Communications, and Evertech, provided bids to either purchase the telecom utility and/or provide new management options or agreements. In analyzing the offers and agreements, it was decided by City Council to directly serve retail internet to the community and discontinue the ACS partnership. It was also decided to increase internet speeds with the investment of DOSIS 3.0, a $300,000 capital investment. A fiber to the home project was discussed at that time as being a wave of the future. Cost estimates for the city of Hawarden was $4 to $5 million to provide fiber to the home. A new management agreement with Long Lines was drafted in addition to the approval of technology upgrades. Thus, the City Council considered alternatives to disposing of the city utility system by sale, including entering into a 28E agreement. In 2018, with the continued reduction of revenues for telephone and cable, High-Tech budgeted to lose approximately $100,000 annually in telephone, and the cable revenues were not covering the excess programming fees, equipment upgrades, or the labor to keep the system going. A significant price increase for cable was passed on to our customers. Internet continued to be profitable. In conversations with council relating to losses for the telephone and cable television services, it was decided to investigate selling the telecom system at that time. Having explored other alternatives and implementing those felt to be worthwhile, but continuing to incur losses, it was prudent to further consider a potential sale of the system. During the same time, the Iowa State Legislature passed a law that a municipality had to meet certain criteria to sell a municipal utility, including a telecom utility. One of the major stumbling blocks in the law was the fact a municipality had to get 2 appraisals of the system, one picked by the municipality and the other picked by IUB. In searching for companies to do an appraisal, none could be found by either IUB or the city of Hawarden. City leaders contacted their state representatives, and in 2020, an amendment was made to the Iowa Code 388.2 that eliminated the appraisal portion of the law for communities with a population between 2,000 and 3,000 people in a telecom utility. Also in 2018, we were notified from Premier Communications that they were going to overbuild their system in Hawarden. According to CEO Doug Boone, they had purchased the old Hickory Tech Exchange, and Hawarden is one of the few markets they were not yet in. Mr. Boone told us that he was just letting us know and knew in 2014 we were looking at getting out of telecom. In 2020, we asked Consortia Consulting to look at our finances now and into the future. We then asked them to refigure our finances, assuming Premier Communications would start up their telecom services to serve the community with an estimated 25% saturation rate. Here is their summary analysis. We ran a financial analysis assuming a competitor begins building a fiber network in Hawarden in late 2022 and completes the building in late 2023 or early 2024. We assume the competitor can capture a 25% market share beginning in 2024 and carry that market share forward. We also assumed a conservative increase in marketing and advertising expenses of $25,000 per year. The valuation in a competitive landscape using these metrics decreases the valuation to between $100,000 and $200,000. Additionally, in this scenario, each flows turn negative in year 4 after, thus no contribution debt repayment occurs after year -3. This brings us to where we are today. Our telecom system faces some major upgrades in the next 5 to 10 years in the $3 to $5 million range for fiber to the home. We also face the challenge of a prominent competitor coming into town offering higher internet speeds, fiber to the home, and expanded digital television lineup, which even with a low saturation rate can put us into a negative cash flow for telecom at year 2024. The Iowa Code requires the City Council to consider alternatives to disposing of the system by sale. While the city has already done so, the council should consider the alternatives once again and determine how it would like to proceed. The alternatives include continuing to operate as is, constructing major system improvements, exploring new partnerships and 28E agreements, or selling the system. Because some of the alternatives have been tried without success, proposals for the purchase of the system have been requested and received. However, when considering the proposals, the council should further consider all alternatives and then decide how to proceed. So again, the alternatives once again would be continuing to operate as is, constructing major system improvements, exploring new partnerships and 28E agreements, or selling the system. So tonight in agenda number 10, we have discussions with that, please.
Yes, I don't have a problem starting. I think the option of continuing as we are is not a viable option, specifically because we don't have a path for this to continue to be successful. I mean, we're continually draining cash flow. We cannot keep up with the standards that other communities around us are having. And I think that's what bothers me the most, is that we're expecting our citizens to take a second-rate offer because that's all we can afford to do. But if they move somewhere else, they're going to get far better service because we just don't have the cash flow to offer it. I don't think it makes it attractive from an economic development standpoint at all, or people moving to your community when you say, I'm offering you this telecom, but sorry, we can't bring it up to the level of maybe the communities you moved from. And so that's why, for me, I don't think the option of continuing as we are is viable at all.
And I think so too, to add to that, with some of the more demanding services that people are looking for, we're going to have to do something just to keep up with the technology that's surrounding us.
I would agree with that. From what we've seen with all of these studies, those kind of things, it's just going to show that we just can't keep up with it, and we would have to put that type of investment into the system.
I think the mayor laid this out pretty well with the history on how we got to this point. I think going forward that with the fiber to the home and what they can offer now, we're kind of losing out. And there's a lot of people around town that would like to see us do something different. And this is just one step in the process of moving forward with it. It still has to be brought to vote, my understanding.
Yes.
So this is one step. So the people will have their say. So just in case you guys are wondering, but I think we got to look at these offers. They're really good offers from both companies, and I think that's to the point where we're at.
There's no way we can spend $5 million to compete with anybody else. I mean, we just don't have the money for that. There's too many problems with the city. We're spending all the time, and it's just, can't do it.
If I can just add, mostly for the people that are listening or out there, the 3 to 5 million, actually, I mean, it's not a number we pulled out. It actually came from Oak Hill Consulting, Larry Butler, who's done all the engineering on our system already. That's his estimations on completing a fiber to the home project in Hawarden.
You know, these decisions and what we've been through up to this point have always been made for the betterment of our community. And that's what we're thinking about as we are making these decisions, to make sure that it's the best for what our community members, what they want.
And I don't want to take anything away from Hawarden taking the step to do this in the first place, because it was, I think, very important that they did so. But at that point in time, no one had any idea what level of impact internet and streaming would have on a system like this. And for us to be competitive in the free marketplace that we're dealing with, it's hard for a government to be nimble enough to do that. So I think it was great that it was started by the community, but just because of technology and how stuff's gone, and especially because of the retransmission fees from local stuff, I mean, that has absolutely no, you can't look out and say that that's going to slow down anytime soon.
I think another point we have to remember is the system we got right now is set up, we could actually handle 30,000 customers, and we got 600. We upgraded all, we're going to be competing with systems that are probably, 100,000, 500,000, whatever. It's just crazy for a town of 600 customers to try to compete with Premier or Long Lines or any of the big outfits now. We just don't have the people in town. Wouldn't work.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I think the only downside to carrying that big of a capital investment is it's going to be very difficult to pass that on to the customers to even float that kind of investment. It makes it very challenging and, yeah, very detrimental to some of the businesses we're trying to start and even the customers we're trying to attract, having those kind of rates.
I mean, if we go down the list, constructing major system improvements, I think we've kind of discussed that. But the exploring new partnerships, that does not negate the fact that we still have to make the improvements to do that. So, I mean, every step that we have to look at this, you still would have to do millions of dollars of improvement to be able to offer an acceptable service to, hopefully, at that point in time, 600 customers. So I guess I would make a motion that we explore selling the system to include a public vote to be held in September.
There's a motion to pursue to sell the system to include a public vote in September.
I'll second.
By Travis, seconded by Jen. And Mike, just give us an overview. We're looking at selling the system. What does a public vote entail as a municipality again?
What we'll have to do is, because of Iowa Code Chapter 388.2, we're going to have to publish our financials from 5 years back to 5 years into the future. And we read off some of those tonight as far as what consortia has figured where our finances will go. And then we'll figure that in. We'll also include that part that we figure in with competition, even at a very low saturation rate. We picked 25% because we don't know how much community loyalty there'll be versus, I think what we found in streaming is a lot of people have dropped their cable and home phone, gone with cell phones and online streaming services. So we don't feel there's as much of the hometown loyalty as there was. But even at 25%, we'll have to publish those. We'll have to publish a history of the system, kind of the same things that Rick read off, the things we've done to try to make it back profitable again, to keep it viable. We will also have to publish the company or companies that we choose to partner with in purchasing the system, if that's the way we go. But the major thing is none of us up here can vote today that we are selling it. We have to have a public vote. We got into the system on a public vote. We have to get out of the system, not only because of a public vote, but also because it's required by Iowa Code 388-2 that you have to have a public vote in order to sell a system. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the residents of our community. The first chance we can have a special city election is in September, I believe the second Tuesday in September. We have to notify them 45 days prior to set up the special election. All of this information will be has to be placed on the website for a period of 90 days, I believe. And then we also have to direct people how to easily find it on the website so everybody can be informed. In the meantime, if there are questions or concerns, they can be directed to any one of us, to City Hall. Every council meeting we have has open business for the community at that time. So it'll be very transparent when we do it.
Thank you. So there's been a motion by Travis, seconded by Jan, to explore selling the system, obviously to include the public vote that Mike just talked about. Other comments from council? Call for a roll call vote for that motion, please.
Olson.
Aye.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
Kurth.
Aye.
Clucky.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, the motion to explore selling the system to include a public vote passes. That then moves on to the discussion of the sale as we explore to include bids taken from two bidders, Long Lines and Premier Communications. Would you give us an overview of that? And Laurie, would you get me another water, please?
Yes, we've worked with both Premier and Long Lines, and they both have had the opportunities to interact with staff, with ourselves, to ask questions, meet with us, and we've entertained offers probably for the last 2 months plus, and have gone back and forth till we got to this point. Just basic rundown of the offers. First, the Premier's offer was a cash offer of $2,850,000. Cash for 100% of the assets. Community betterment dedication. They would give over $50,000 over the next 3 years in community betterment. For community betterment, they would give us a reduced rate on our dark fiber of about $4,000 a year for 10 years. System investment, they would invest $4.5 million over the next 2 years. Start fiber to the home project within by 2022. They said they would complete fiber to the home within 2 years. Long Lines was the other company, and we've had a long-standing relationship with Long Lines. Their cash offer was $2,900,000. There was nothing under the community betterment. Dark fiber. By dark fiber, it's the fiber that feeds our utilities, our wellheads, our wastewater treatment plant, things like that. They would continue to offer us that free for 15 years. They would offer voice, video, and internet to the city buildings free for 10 years or until a cap of $250,000. They have offered a system investment of $638,000 over 5 years to get us up to a 1 gig community within a very short time. Fiber to the home, they would like to start a fiber to the home project. I don't believe there was a timeline on that, but that's something that they would look at into the future. They will start fiber to the business sooner than fiber to the home. So those are the kind of the meat and potatoes of the two offers.
And first, we're very thankful to have those entities give us offers.
Very good offers compared to when we looked at it in 2014 in selling the system.
So did you find out anything about that competition angle that we were talking about, that if we sold the business to one, would Coilcraft be able to get?
The redundancy?
Yeah.
Obviously, if we sold to long lines, Premier would still be here and the redundancy wouldn't be a problem. Premier has also said they would be able to run redundancy as they do to the hospitals in the communities they're in, as well as Dordt University. Another option is your cellular internet as a redundant internet if your main fiber ever went down.
So they would be okay then? With the redundancy?
They would
That-
be able to
they would
have-
be able to
yeah,
do that
From
and
what I've
still
been
retain-
told, that would be possible.
Okay.
And it's being done all over.
Right.
I mean, this is not a new thing.
Right.
Right. There's so many businesses that rely on internet and redundancy all the time. They're not unique in that aspect.
For me, I mean, the offers are very close as far as dollar amount for cash. Obviously, I'm very interested in the community betterment part of it, the system investment. I think it's very marketable to our community when you're talking about fiber to the home and a $4.5 million investment. That's huge for a community like ours because it's something that we couldn't do ourselves. And doing that in 2 years, I think that makes it very marketable for Larry to work with other businesses or homeowners. The one thing I will say, and I know we've discussed this at length, but being on council for a little while now, we have not always had the greatest service experience from long lines, and that plays a huge factor into me because it's been a struggle consistently. I've worked in communities where Premier's there, also where long lines is there, and for me, the community betterment, the service, the everything for Premier is, I think, what's best for our community and what they would expect going forward.
Yeah, I too share a good experience with Premier in another community. The service is great. They're always reachable. They've always provided a good benefit to the company that I work with. So.
I think in that offer, we were able to see some of the other businesses around that are with Premier right now, and they had a really good rapport with them. And that's the kind of thing that I would look for, with the customer service and stuff to our community members to make sure that everybody is taken care of in a timely manner if something does happen. I think Premier is able to bring us, into the future, be able to set us up for future, however, the technology is just always going to get bigger, and it kind of just brings us right up to date with everything. So.
Really like the idea of having fiber in 2 years, because I'm not going to be around when long lines would ever get around to getting fiber to the house, so it'd be nice to have it sooner rather than later.
It's nice, they put a timeline out there for that.
No, I like that idea too, and the fact that they have a service type that lives in town and a couple just outside of town makes a huge difference in my mind for our customers here.
Any further comments?
I would say too, even looking at some of the offerings, Longline obviously has some great high-speed options for internet, but if you look at Premier, they do offer a more vast offering. Those that are not streaming media just need some basic internet access, email access. Premier does offer a more cost-effective solution for them as well versus putting them into services they don't necessarily need.
I will make a motion that we move forward, looking to partner with Premier Communications for selling our telecom.
There's been a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. The motion and second was to pursue the sale with Premier Communications. Call for a roll call vote for that motion, please.
Kurth.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Clucky.
Aye.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, that motion passes. Mike had given us kind of a timeline as to what is coming next. We do have staff that are employed in the telecommunications department of our city. If in September the community allows us to pursue that sale, do we have an idea at this point for staff members?
Correct. We don't anticipate any staff changing. We're starting a large metering project with our utilities. And Ron, before he got into telecom, was working with our electric department, which will fit nicely back into that. And then the front office, of course, we have Christy, who does a lot of our phone stuff. But with the reduction last year of Pam in our front office, it's way too busy for two people. And so we will, we don't plan on any kind of staff reductions.
Okay, thank you for that. And don't need to beat it, but it's going to be voted on. If what we will find out in September what the community citizens think. Okay. That then ends agenda item number 10. Just for you folks that are in the community, if you noticed on roll call votes, council members were polled at a different name. They didn't start with the same council person, and they did not end with the same council person. We move in then to agenda item number 11, discussion of a possible land swap with CFE Industries.
Oh, yeah. CFE reached out to us about a possible land swap. They have a multi-year, multi-million-dollar investment plan that they would like to start with a liquid fertilizer tank. We talked about the railroad roundabout. That's right about in the area. They'd like to install that tank. And then the next phase would be 2 or 3 new elevators or bins. But to do that, they would like to go north of the existing bins at their site. So you'll see in yellow is city-owned property, and it's all kind of intermingled because of the railroad tracks. And the blue is CFE property. There's a couple uncolored ones. Those are Gary Witt's that he bought Hawarden Feed and Grain. So the swap they would like to do.
See here.
So that would be after the swap. That would, basically, they would gain access to a driveway. They don't own their driveway now, the city does. They would get rail, and it just squares everything off. And then we would gain the fertilizer area, which is between our transformer yard and our gas and electric shop. So it all just flows really well.
So there would be no rail there anymore at all,
Correct.
They would remove all the rail.
including on the highway?
Yes, that
Yeah,
highway,
the highway crossing would go.
which is another bonus.
That rail is used very little. We do have a current lease with LG Everest that they push cars there once in a while. It does take a 30-day letter from us, a 30-day notification to terminate that lease, but nobody else does anything with that rail. Matter of fact, the manager of CFE said that when there's train cars there, he looks directly out his window at graffitied cars with not such nice words on them.
Yeah.
So,
Were they doing some maintenance of those rail cars or something at one point?
you know, they did
That's
that
right.
for a while. They quit doing that, and now they just push them there and kind of store them there.
Okay.
They do pay us $20 per car that they store on there, but if they're stored all summer, it's the same $20.
Need a bigger truck.
I think there's some way we could tie in a reopening of the, what is it, 3rd Street or whatever, where the south end of the park, so they could go straight across. Is that,
You know, eventually they want to abandon most of that area.
Yeah.
Are they going to keep anhydrous there? Oh, at the old soup fertilizer.
that's what I was
Yes,
thinking,
they're-
if they were going to keep the anhydrous, but still, so we could use that, because that street to go to the park and have to drive around 4 or 5 blocks, nobody wants to do that. And even if you had speed bumps across the area to keep people from driving fast,
Right.
still have it go straight through. And
I think that road you're talking about is actually their property.
Yeah,
It's not-
but it was
it's not
given
a-
to them, wasn't it, by the, I thought it was councils some time back decided to close the street for them.
It could have been, I mean,
I don't know the history on it. I
Yeah.
know
I just
that,
heard that one time that,
you know, we try to route people around the south end, but they still cut through, but, you know, it's
But I'm
not a
saying-
problem unless it's the other
Yeah.
accesses. and-
but I'm just saying to make it official instead of,
correct.
if we can throw
definitely
that
could talk to them
in.
about it.
Yeah, I'd
It's
like,
not something that, I guess I thought of or that was brought up, but I know they're gonna abandon most of that down there except the anhydrous.
okay, well, that's, I'm just, see if you can bring that into the discussion, because this makes a lot of sense otherwise.
I think I've got some information on that. I was thinking that was an easement from Everest, but I'm not positive on that, but
Yeah.
got some information on it.
We can look into it. This is where our city attorney comes in handy.
All right,
Actually, anytime you get near those railroad tracks, trying to come up with a legal description is,
And no official offer has been made by CFE, we're just in the talks. So we thought we'd bring it to council's attention, and if there was any issue, then we wouldn't continue with the conversation, but, you know, as long as everyone has a good feeling about it, we'll continue the talks, and
In the-
obviously bring something back when an offer is made, so.
In the yard, on the current map, you'll see where our Long City shop is in the middle. To the north of that it's a big fertilizer building. They'll take that down. It'll involve the Bi-State Fertilizer office and storage. They may want to sell us that at a very low rate. Otherwise, they did have somebody else that might be interested in it. But if we allow them to sell it off to somebody else, it's gonna cut a big corner right in where we would envision, at some time, new public works buildings and things like that. The current ones we have are getting very old and deteriorated, and we can weather it for a while yet, but at some point, they're gonna need to be updated or replaced. So, we also need to put in a transformer yard. So we're thinking we could move that farther back to the east and not have to run it as far as where it is now. Right now, it's behind that old Quonset hut that's right along 7th Street. That's seen its better day as well.
Any other comments from council?
Go for it.
Yep.
Continued discussion?
Yeah, and they have to get approval from their board first, but we didn't want them to go through all that without knowing if it's something we would consider, so.
Thanks, and thanks for their hopeful future investment in the community. Move on to agenda item number 12. This is a consent agenda. Request from the Periodic Bar for an 8-month Class C liquor license, and Sportsman's is transferring a liquor license to the Hawarden Community Center on Saturday, May the 1st. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jim. All in favor then of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. Our next regular stated meeting will be May the 12th, again, the second Wednesday of the month. As my understanding, would you folks going to need a picture up here to verify your attendance? We will do that afterwards. Again, we thank you for your attendance. All around, we thank you for being with us. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Moved by Travis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, city council is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.